Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now on today's show, there's a few topics that I kind of wanted to discuss. Primarily, I wanted to talk about the 300i, but the problem is that the 300i in its current iteration is really just not working. The nose gun was missing, the missiles were missing. When I got into it in the hangar, it seemingly very slowly tried to take off by itself. And then when I took it out into space and started trying to do missions with it, I guess there's a brand new feature, which is a trapdoor, which constantly throws you back out into space when you try to get back in your ship, despite the fact that there being a solid floor there. So 300i, a topic to be visited in a future episode. So what we're going to deal with instead is the Buccaneer. Now, of course, that's the first of the things that we're going to deal with. And, yesterday, on Friday when I was talking about the Buccaneer, and, we found out the price earlier in the week that it was going to be $110, which puts it on par with the Hornet F7C, which is the base Hornet, and the Freelancer. So that kind of opens up a lot of possibilities, and it actually intrigues me a lot more about the ship than I would have been before, because to be perfectly honest, I was expecting, performance-wise, probably another Gladius with just a different weapon arrangement. And I was open to the idea of it, but I was hoping that it would be a little something more, but I pretty much was expecting another Gladius. And so when I found out that it was $110 instead of out of $100, or rather instead of $100, at first I was a little bit like, you guys are kind of kicking up a hornet's nest because you said a 1-for-1 trade, and I'm still looking for that quote. I'm pretty sure it was in February. I'm narrowing it down. I'll find it. But, to actually knock the price up $10 over the Cutlass, you kind of, you're kicking over a hornet's nest, and it's probably not a good idea. But, I mean, that's not going to be my problem to deal with, really, because I don't work at CIG. So, I mean, if you want to shoot yourself in the foot, go right ahead. Fine. But the fact that it's $110, it opens up a lot of possibilities when you price it up there with the F7C and with the Freelancer. Now, of course, the F7C, one of the great features about the F7C, and a lot of people know this, but they kind of don't know it, is just that you can take an F7C and you can pretty much fit everything that you have on a Super Hornet, you can put on an F7C, with the exception, I believe, that the only current difference between the Super Hornet and the regular Hornet, apart from the second, the co-pilot seat or the Rio seat, is the fact that the Super Hornet has a size 4 power core, whereas the regular Hornet has a size 3, at least the F7C version. So you're a little bit limited in your energy there, but you might get a bonus in terms of the signature of your ship being a little bit smaller as well with the standard F7C. But that base Hornet opens up so much potential for so many other things that you can do, right? And that's kind of factored into the cost of the ship, I would assume. Now, of course, the Buccaneer isn't going to really have all that much potential, I don't think, in terms of viability or variability, where you can kind of say, well, I want to make it a ghost, I want to make it a tracker. You're probably not going to be able to do all those different things, but the fact that it still sits up there in price, it might point to a very impressive armament on top of high speed and high maneuverability. It's definitely an interesting topic. It's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, and it's something that's got me intrigued and excited, and I hope it's going to be one of those ships that they just go straight through and go right to flight ready with. I think that would be really, really cool. And I'm a lot more excited for it now. You know, having a few days to digest the price, I'm a lot more excited about the potential of the ship now than I would have been had it been, say, $90 or $100. I'm a lot more intrigued by the ship. Now, the fact that it's supposed to have a main armament that fires 360 degrees, you know, I had kind of guessed that, well, I guess that kind of makes it a two-seater, right? Because you can't really, as a pilot, you can't shoot behind you. I mean, you can, but that would kind of imply an auto-tracking turret, which may be the way that they're thinking of going to resolve the, you know, the difference in controls between mouse and keyboard and, you know, just straight up Hotas flying without the ability to control your gimbals. It's opening up a lot of interesting possibilities, so I'm really excited to see the ship, not just like as something that I would want to buy, but I don't know, the possibilities intrigue me as to how they're going to resolve certain issues or how they're going to implement certain things, and it might give us an idea as to which way the control imbalance is going to go as well, if it really does have guns that shoot 360 degrees, because how else could you control them unless you had a gunner or some type of auto-tracking turret? So I'm very, very interested to see which way that one goes. Very, very interested. And just while we're on the topic of Drake ships, there's another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up. Just something that, I mean, a lot of us are probably aware of it, but it's definitely been something that's been kind of eating away at the back of my mind just a little bit. And the other thing was the Caterpillar. Now the Caterpillar, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about it recently because it's moving forward and it is supposed to be the next big ship that we're going to get our hands on. Now, given what happened with the Starfare, I mean, the original Starfare way back when, if you bought it, was like, what, $185 for a Starfare? I apologize, I don't know the exact price, but now it's way, way up there. I mean, the Starfare Gemini is $340 now for that ship. And, you know, obviously there's going to be a sale for those ships again now that they're going to be flyable in the next patch, which hopefully we'll have our hands on really soon. But if the Caterpillar goes through a similar price increase, and I don't just mean a price increase from concept to basically flyable, but a price increase to also reflect changes that they've made, including making the ship larger, because correct me if I'm wrong, but they have said that the ship is actually bigger than they originally planned. I can't provide a direct quote to that, but I believe that they have said that the ship is going to be, in fact, larger than was originally promised. If you're someone who is dead set on getting a Caterpillar, I would very much keep my eyes on the sales that go on between now and then, and if there is a chance to get it at the current price, which is, I think, what, $225 to $240. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but it's right in and around there for a basic Caterpillar. Might be the time to grab one of those things, because it could be over $300 by the time they're done with it and by the time it's flyable. So if you're dead set on that ship, that's definitely something to keep in mind, as this might be your opportunity to just get it while the price is still low. You know what I mean? Now, lastly, I wanted to deal with the Star Citizen Hotas, because, you know, I've dealt with it before, but it's a topic that is it's a very particular pet peeve of mine. The way some people are displeased with the Cutlass, I'm displeased with the Star Citizen Hotas. And keep in mind what I'm about to say about the Star Citizen Hotas. This comes from basically a mouse and keyboard user. Now, I use a mouse and I use a Logitech G13 as my control interface. I love it, and I don't see myself changing. But when I'm arguing for Hotas users, this is a mouse user arguing for people who basically are using a competing interface. People that I could otherwise be perfectly happy taking advantage of in the game if things stayed the way they're going to stay. Now, does that mean that things are going to stay the way they're going to stay, or the way that they are? No, but my pet peeve, my real problem with the Star Citizen Hotas is the trackball. Now, the trackball has been described as a way to control your gimbals, but for anybody who's actually used a trackball, and I'm even going way back in the day, for those like old time PC users who remember things like Unisys Icon computers, you remember those things, those old beasts with that giant integrated trackball, or any trackball, mind you. The larger the diameter of the trackball is, the easier it is to be exact with it, right? And to have a little trackball on the Hotas, of small diameter trackball, no matter how many, how exact you can make it, no matter how many DPIs of resolution you can get into it, the problem is it's still a small diameter trackball, and you're still controlling it with your thumb in kind of like a hooked over position. So you're never going to be able to be that exact with it, You're never going to be that efficient with something like that. And so you're always going to be lagging behind. Now, it could be a great interface for, say, navigating menus when you're not in combat. But the problem is, and the central problem with the trackball, is not just a resolution and a precision issue, but it's when I'm using a mouse, I have two control interfaces blended into one. I can do two jobs with one interface at the same time. Whereas a Hotas user, he's managing his joystick and the trackball, two separate interfaces at the same time, and trying to use them both at the same time. And while his thumb is on that trackball, all his hat switches on the top of his joystick are essentially useless. They're gone. They might as well not be there, because so long as you have to manage your guns with that trackball, all those other hat switches, in order to use them, you're going to have to stop using your guns. Or you're just going to have to let your guns basically fly limp and use them as as fixed weapons. And that's the central issue, is that the trackball as a way to control your weapons doesn't even work conceptually. So there really isn't anything you can do hardware-wise to close that gap with a trackball. I think that the trackball approach for controlling gimbaled weapons is, it's just a non-starter. It should be something that never left the drawing board. A better idea for how to close up the gap with basically Hotas and joystick users and mouse users is to look at the ideas of weapon convergence, allowing people with fixed weapons to set a weapon convergence so that all their guns will intersect at one point in space ahead of them, say 500, 1,000, 1,500 meters ahead of them. Let them set a gun convergence so that they can fire their weaponry much better. So as long as they're being precise with their joystick, they can deliver more shots into a much smaller space. I think that is a better move to kind of close the gap. And if those pilots are still using gimbaled weapons and they're using a Hotas, then I wouldn't argue so much for auto-locking turrets, but what I would say is make it so that the turrets track basically the range to the target and then converge at that range. So you still have to put the pipper on the target, but when you do put the pipper on the target, all your guns are going to be hitting the same way, irregardless of basically projectile travel time. They'll already compensate for that, so they're all going to put their shot regardless of what type of gun they're firing or what size or what projectile velocity. They will always hit the same spot in space together. I think that would actually be a much better system for kind of bridging the gap between mouse and keyboard and Hotas and joystick. I think that is something to look into, and the trackball should be relegated to navigating menus. But I don't know. That's my opinion on why right now the Star Citizen Hotas just is something that I don't even consider. As far as I'm concerned, it's just right now it's a waste of energy and time. And I think that the problem of, you know, this kind of disparity between controllers is better solved on a software level than on a hardware level. I think that's where really the conversation should be, and I think that that's where the energy should be focused. And I think it's something that, especially if you're going to start marketing a HOTAS specifically to people with a $200, $250 or more price tag on it, I think that that's a question that you need to solve fairly soon. You definitely need to give definite answers, and I don't mean just like, well, we're looking into it and we'll fix it. No, I mean you've got to close the door on that problem before you start charging people like hundreds of dollars for a HOTAS. And you can't just have a solution that works for only one HOTAS. You can't just take all the people who have Thrustmasters or what is it, the Cytec X55 Rhino, or those few people out there who actually have X65s. You can't just stick them out in the cold and say, well, we solved it with this HOTAS, so you have to come back and buy a whole other one. You have to solve it for every HOTAS together, which is also another reason why the trackball is a bad idea. Because you can't just leave all those people out in the cold. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the Piracy show this week. Now, of course, I did want to do an episode on, you know, one of my favorite ships, and I wanted to start off at one of the cheap ships, a ship that pretty much anybody can afford. But I guess we'll have to wait for the next patch before I can do that, hopefully. If not, I will move up to another ship that I really like. Obviously a much more pricey and limited availability option, which is the Super Hornet, which is, I think, an excellent ship, a very well designed ship, a ship that really is a standout. When you look at ships in Star Citizen, I think that the reason why the Hornet or the Super Hornet is so good is because it wasn't designed so well in terms of appearance. The appearance has nothing to do with it. It was designed so well in terms of functionality. It's built exactly right to do the job that it's supposed to do. But we'll get into that in the future. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.